Good morning, Sheridan family. This is Miss Davis. Today I'm going to read you the story Quiet Wyatt. Now, Quiet Wyatt is about a little boy who everyone tells to be quiet. However, in our story, we're going to find out just what happens when Wyatt is quiet. The big kids on Wyatt Street were building a model plane. Wyatt said, "I'd like to fly it," but the big kids said, "Quiet, Wyatt. You're not old enough to fly a plane." Wyatt's sister was washing the car. Wyatt said, "I'd like to dry it," but his sister frowned and said, "Quiet, Wyatt. You're not big enough to dry a car." Wyatt's father took an egg out of the refrigerator. Wyatt touched it. It was smooth and cold. Wyatt said, "I'd like to fry it," but his father smiled and said, "Quiet, Wyatt. You're not old enough to fry an egg." On Saturday, when Wyatt's family took a walk downtown, Wyatt saw a puppy in the pet store window. The puppy looked soft and fluffy and had big brown eyes. Wyatt said, "I'd like to buy it." His mother shook her head and said, "Quiet, Wyatt. You're not old enough to have a puppy yet." First, Wyatt was sad. Then, Wyatt was angry. "Nobody will listen to me," he thought. "Nobody thinks I'm big enough or old enough to do anything, but I'll change their minds." The next morning, Wyatt got up very early. He put on his father's coat and hat. He picked up his father's briefcase, went outside. "I'm Wyatt," he shouted. "Someday I'll be the biggest kid on the street." His neighbors opened their windows. "Quiet, Wyatt," they called. "We're trying to sleep." That afternoon, when all the big kids went to a football game, Wyatt followed them. During a timeout in the game, Wyatt ran onto the field. "I'm Wyatt," he shouted, "and someday I'm going to be big enough to kick a football all the way up to the sky." The people watching the game began to yell. "Quiet, Wyatt," they shouted. "You're interrupting the game." Poor Wyatt. He ran to the river at the edge of town. "I'm Wyatt," he shouted, "and someday I'm going to be big enough to catch the biggest fish in the river." "River, river," repeated an echo. Fishermen didn't want Wyatt to scare the fish. "Quiet, Wyatt," they called, and the echo said, "Quiet, quiet, quiet, Wyatt, Wyatt, Wyatt." "Even the echo doesn't want to listen to me," said Wyatt. "Nobody wants to listen to me, so why should I say anything at all?" And from then on, Wyatt was quiet. The big kids lost their airplane. Wyatt knew where it was, but Wyatt was quiet. Wyatt's sister polished the family car until it was all dry and shiny. Wyatt saw a big black rain cloud approaching, but Wyatt was quiet. Wyatt's father left an egg on the kitchen counter. Wyatt saw it start to roll towards the edge, but Wyatt was quiet, and splat went the egg. The mailman drove up. When he got out of his truck, he was carrying all the mail for Wyatt's whole street. Wyatt saw that the mailman's shoelaces were untied, but Wyatt was quiet. Crash. Then Wyatt saw something coming up the street. It was soft, fluffy puppy with the big brown eyes. It ran right past Wyatt and it hid underneath the mailman's truck. The pet store owner ran up and down the street. "Have you seen a puppy?" he asked, but Wyatt was quiet. The police chief ran up the street. "Have you seen a puppy?" he asked. But Wyatt was quiet. By now, all the people on Wyatt Street had come out of their houses. Take a look. Do you see the puppy? Hiding behind and underneath the truck. Oh no, the mailman was getting into his truck. Wyatt wanted to be quiet, but he was so afraid that the puppy might get hurt by the truck that he couldn't just keep quiet any longer. "The puppy is hiding underneath the mailman's truck," Wyatt shouted. Quickly, the mailman got out of his truck. Wyatt crawled under the truck and saved the puppy. Then the pet store owner took the puppy back to the pet store, and Wyatt waved goodbye. "It's a good thing that Wyatt said something," one of the neighbors remarked, and all the people on Wyatt Street agreed. The next day, people began to treat Wyatt differently. "Fly it, Wyatt." "Dry it, Wyatt." "Fry it, Wyatt." On Saturday, when Wyatt and his family took a walk downtown, Wyatt couldn't wait to see the puppy in the pet store window. And the puppy jumped up and down because he was so glad to see Wyatt. Wyatt's parents remembered how Wyatt had spoken up to save the puppy, and they were very proud of him. They pointed to the puppy and said, "Let's buy it, Wyatt." Now, Wyatt was really happy. He had his own soft, fluffy puppy with big brown eyes, and nobody ever said "Quiet Wyatt" anymore. Well, hardly ever. All right, boys and girls, that is my story about Quiet Wyatt. Now, my challenge for you, in the comments, comment why it was a safe or a good idea for Wyatt to talk about saving the puppy. All right, thanks, boys and girls. Hope to see you soon. Bye.